You bringing up Signal again? I thought they gave that up 2 weeks ago.
There was a new report separate chat that included some family members.
It's all just the same old stuff from the media. That's an old one. Try finding something new.
Former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter.
Look, not to be rude or anything, but if you cannot peel behind the curtain and see through the BS that is happening right now, then frankly, I don't know what to tell you. You just don't get it, right? If you do not understand the manufactured outrage and fake scandals against Pete Hegseth, why they're happening and why the current timing, then frankly, you are just simply very naive to the actual U.S. government and the way that corruption works within it. Because to me, as we look at everything that's come out in the past 24 hours, where the media is trying to resurrect a lot of the old scandals against Pete Hegseth, right? Apparently now they're saying there was a second Signal chat, right? Remember Signalgate a couple weeks ago, that scandal that really ended up not really going that far. Nobody actually cared about. Well, mysteriously, late last night at the end of Easter, suddenly you get this new headline from the New York Times saying, as you can see, Pete Hegseth apparently shared attack details in a second Signal chat. So there's two Signal chats now, right? The first one ended up being a nothing burger nobody cared about, but now the second one, oh, what's going on there? We also coincided apparently with reports coming out of outlets like NPR saying that Pete Hegseth is going to be resigning soon, right? Top insiders in the Pentagon are saying his time is done. What is going on here? Well, to me, this all vindicates, actually, believe it or not, that Pete Hegseth is the perfect choice to be leading the Department of Defense, and he's doing a great job, which is exactly why so much smear is coming against him, not just from the media, but where's the media getting it from? I think this is very important. From the insiders, the bad actors, the warmongers, the neocons within the Pentagon are spreading this stuff to the media, and that's not even conspiracy theory. That's not even conjecture. No, in some cases, as we'll show you today, they are doing it so openly. And again, why is that? Because Pete Hegseth was the right choice to lead the Department of Defense. Why all of that in mind as we read this article? I'm just explaining for you the context here, because as you can see, okay, a couple of days ago, Israel had planned to strike Iranian nuclear sites as soon as next month, but was waved off by President Trump in recent weeks in favor of negotiating a deal with Tehran to limit its nuclear program, according to administration officials and others briefed on the discussions. Of course, this has been a big source of contention currently going on in the world, and especially between America, Israel, actors like that, is this big question of should either America and or Israel airstrike Iran's nuclear sites to basically stop their nuclear program. And of course, the argument for it is clear, right? Oh, well, we don't want to have a nuclear Iran. But the counter argument is also clear, which is, yeah, but if you go into another country, a sovereign country, and airstrike the country, that's very likely to start war, right? I mean, maybe you get lucky and somehow Iran stands down and, you know, I don't know, by dumb luck, right? But the most likely outcome, and everyone obviously understands this, is that whether Israel or America does it, if you airstrike Iran and destroy their nuclear facilities, very likely you're going to end up in a hot war with Iran, okay? And you could make the counter argument that, oh, Trump attacked Soleimani in the first term and that didn't start anything. It's like, okay, but we did come pretty close, first of all. But also, secondly, that airstrike took place in Iraq, right? You're not going into like where there was active fighting going on. You're not going into another nation and just airstriking them. So, you know, to me, this is something I just want to make it clear I oppose. I think Trump is right? Diplomacy should be the answer, but you know, if not, right, to go and airstrike a foreign country, I don't see where America benefits from this necessarily. I mean, I could see why Israel wants to do it, but that's why there's this like divide within the Trump administration. But to me, all you're doing is basically like inciting war. And for what? You know, for what? It's the Iraq situation 2.0, right? I think is what we're being dragged into here.
Last week, New York Times, Onen Bergman, an Israeli journalist, that says, look, the U.S. is the one pumping the brakes on the Iran attack. And it had everyone in Israel really confused, because we were expecting the U.S. government to be hawkish on this topic. And the promise we've been hearing from the White House is time and time again, you know, push as hard as you can. And if we're not going to materialize on a negotiation side, then we're going to do it on a military strike. And it has us all confused. So maybe you can set the record straight on where we're going.
Well, first of all, I would say, who would you think would be telling you the truth more? President Trump, who has done so many things for Israel, moving the embassy, recognizing Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights, and removing this nonsense of illegality about Judea and Samaria. the Abraham Accords, him or the New York Times?
Now, that's an easy one.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, Trump's definitely on much higher up on that ranking.
He has been very explicitly clear, both on the destruction of Hamas, getting the hostages out, and repeatedly saying Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
So here's what an American friend, we were in the car the other day visiting Samaria with my kids, and we're talking about this, like, what could this actually mean? And my friend goes, this is probably a tactic. I said, what do you mean? He said, he's probably trying to, like, lull them into a sense of safety, the Iranians, only to really materialize. I'm not going to ask you what's going to happen. I want to hear, in your sense, where do you think all of this is going? I mean, we have a president in the White House that is more supportive than I think anyone in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And he's surrounded by a cabinet and people, yourself included, who care about Israel as much as the Israelis do or more. Where are we going with everything that's happening in the Middle East? Like, how is it going to reshape this region?
There's an opportunity to see it reshaped. But Iran can't be a part of it if it wants to be a bully. It cannot continue to supply the funds for Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and to directly attack Israel.
Yeah.
It has to stop its rhetoric, which says death to Israel and death to America. What the president is doing, I don't want to comment on what's really going on. Here's what I could say to people. If there is a way to get the Iranians to truly recognize they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, they're not going to be able to continue to threaten and attack. But if not, it should not surprise people that President Trump is a man of his word, and he's repeatedly said they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Hamas will never control Gaza. They will not be able to stay there. We want the hostages home, and we want to bring a realignment of the Middle East. We're seeing big changes in places like Syria, already breakthroughs with other Gulf state countries.
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies and on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because, you know, this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with access to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know it, we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the warfighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring, so they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job, and the president stands strongly behind him.
Yeah.